So the summer after I graduated high school was supposed to be the party summer. A couple of last months to hang out with my friends and say my farewells before I move off to Boston to start going to college. And for the first few weeks of that summer, it was definitely exactly like that. A lot of house parties, a lot of drinking. Looking back on it now, it was even kind of a blur. But all those good times were abruptly cut short. You see, we were all hanging out at my buddy Percy's house. His parents were away for the week, so we kind of had the house to ourselves. And we had like night after night of big parties. And because we were all relatively semi-sensitive to the idea of drunk driving, we usually ended up crashing at the house wherever the party was. Sleeping on floors, sleeping on couches, that sort of thing. But my friend Tony, he had to work the next day. And so late that night, or I guess technically early that morning, he decided to leave the party to go back to his parents' house, get a night's sleep before he had to go work his crappy retail job at like a Staples type of company. But that night as Tony was driving home, he either sort of veered off the road or fell asleep and drove off the road and hit a parked tractor trailer. Killed him instantly. And yeah, and really to this day, I still think about him and really feel like grieve him because he was such a good guy, such a special guy. And I think he had so much potential, but he never got to realize that potential because he was dead by the time he was 19. And for me and many of my friends, that was the first time that we as adults ever had to confront grieving. And admittedly, it was a very foreign feeling and very uncomfortable. But as you get older and you confront more loss, you become more comfortable with the process of grieving and what that emotion feels like. And even as I stand out here in the middle of nowhere in Vermont while it's 2 degrees and I should be doing my animal chores and I'm telling you guys this story, that sense of loss and grieving is so ingrained in me. I'm still reflecting now and frankly feeling sad about Tony. But these feelings of loss and grieving have me actually thinking about my animals here on the farm because it's got me wondering, do ducks feel grief like people feel grief? Release the Kraken! As the regular viewers of our YouTube channel know, a couple of weeks ago I had to put down Samson puddle duck. He was the largest and mightiest duck on our farm, but because of his ginormous size, he was starting to experience some real health problems. He could barely walk and his quality of life seemed really poor, and so I put him down. It's not the action that I'd like to do, but it was what I needed to do. And while I've personally felt sad about having to butcher Samson puddle duck, and I know a lot of you guys were devastated by the fact that I had to do that too, I know that the creature that's probably been most distraught about Samson's demise is Spicy Duck. Hey Spicy Duck, how's it going? Huh? Can you go outside today for me? You see, Spicy Duck was Samson's sister from another mister who had been with Samson Puddle Duck since the day he was born. The two ducks were hatched out together, and Spicy Duck was with Samson Puddle Duck until the day he died. A lot of you guys know that they were hatched out together by our local elementary school using some duck eggs that I donated. Once they were done with their class project, I got to take on the ducklings, and so at about 10 days old, Spicy Duck, Samson Puddle Duck, Samson's sister, Delilah Puddle Duck, and then another khaki Campbell duck who went by the name of Quacken, they were all hatched out together. And those 4 ducks were as thick as thieves. That summer of their teenage days, they spent it running around this farm, causing a ruckus. They were quite adorable. Spicy Duck got her name because she had a lot of attitude, and even as a little duckling, she wouldn't be bullied by the older ducks.
Excuse me, you guys.
Hey guys, look at ducklings. Ducklings chasing the other ones. Do you see that?
Yeah, that was hysterical. You're the boldest one of all. Aww.
Samson got his name because he was the son of Samuel Puddle Duck. Delilah got her name because, well, I don't know, Samson and Delilah, even though I know they were brother and sister, and that's a little bit weird, it just seemed to fit at the time. And then Quacken was always the duck that seemed most likely to integrate. And ultimately, as I brought all of my ducks together and introduced the mini Quacken into the adult Quacken, Quacken ended up integrating into the broader flock. Sadly, Delilah Puddle Duck was taken by a predator here on our farm just before Toby Dog showed up. I think it was a pesky bobcat that devoured her. But Samson and Spicy Duck, they remained thick as thieves through it all. But unfortunately, since Samson's departure, Spicy Duck seems to be very depressed. Spicy, you're stuck inside again. Which brings me to the title of this video and why I'm really wondering this question. Over the last couple of weeks, she has remained inside the house, she's really kept to herself, she hasn't integrated in with the rest of the ducks. Like, I get that she and Samson were a mini flock, but I would have assumed that she would have integrated into the broader flock much more quickly. But she hasn't, and she kind of remains somewhat of a recluse. You see, while the rest of the ducks will run around the duck yard and do their duck thing, Spicy Duck has been staying inside, and it really kind of makes me sad. I don't know if Spicy Duck is really feeling grief, or if I'm just anthropomorphizing. You guys know anthropomorphizing, right? That's where you assign human characteristics to an animal. But if you were gonna ask me, the guy who's looking after her every day, I would say that Spicy Duck is definitely experiencing grief. She's grieving the loss of her close companion and friend. All right, geese, time to lock you up. Oh no. Justin, please. Justin, leave me alone, man. Spicy Duck, what are you doing in here? Get out. Out you go, Spice. Spicy, come on. Out, 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 out. What's the matter with you, girl? Why do you keep going into weird places? Why don't you hang out with the other ducks? Because we raise 3 different types of birds here on our farm, ducks, geese, and chickens, it's actually interesting to see the different behavioral characteristics across the different species. You know, chickens are downright ruthless. They will eat each other, they will murder each other. Rest in power, Margie the murder chicken. Geese, on the other hand, absolutely do grieve each other and miss each other. Every year when I do my big goose call, there's always a little bit of sadness that happens when I have to separate out the geese, and the geese that stay and live on don't see those other geese come back. And when it comes to ducks, I always actually thought they veered more towards the land of the chicken, where they didn't seem to care as much. But in watching the situation of Spicy and Samson, I feel like I'm reversing my point of view on that one. Whatever it was, whether it's the flock mentality or just the fact that Spicy imprinted on Samson the day she was born, and that's what she's always seen as a family duck, there are unquestionably strong emotional ties that existed between those two birds. Even now, the one duck that Spicy seems to have paired off with and reconnected with is Jemima Puddle Duck, who's now currently the only Pekin duck we have on our farm. And so if I think about it, right, Spicy's looking for other Pekin ducks, and so she gravitates to Jemima. You and Jemima go inside here? In a way, it's not all that different than how Ron Swanson, the duck that thinks she's a goose, gravitates to the geese. Because she was hatched out with those geese, she's imprinted on geese, and she doesn't see her own kind as ducks, but sees them as geese. So I'm not sure if the connection that a duck feels reaches the emotional depth that we humans feel when we experience grief. But I also don't think it's my place to judge that. And I just need to, as the farmer, recognize that there are emotions and there are feelings that the animals have. And if I want to raise animals humanely, I need to be considering the emotional toll. Right now, it seems like Spicy is starting to slowly integrate in with the rest of the Quacken. I don't know if she's ever gonna be 100% hooked into that flock of ducks. I know from experience that as time goes on, those feelings of grief and loss, they move away from the forefront. They don't ever go away and disappear, but they also don't cut with the same sharpness like they do when they're fresh. But that said, they're always there, and it's a part of life. Come on, Toby Doc, let's go.